Imagine you've just been handed the deed to your dream home, but there's no police force, no judges, and no laws. Sounds like absolute chaos waiting to happen, right? Well, that's exactly where we find ourselves today as we dive into an incredibly fascinating ancient text where the division of land transitions into the establishment of a justice system.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets Joshua chapter 20 in a clear and simple way, step by step.
Here is our agenda for today's explainer. We'll cover context and the command, the process of seeking sanctuary, the 6 appointed cities, explanations and key ideas, practical life lessons, and finally, a summary and recap. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Context and command. Setting the stage.
To really grasp what's going on here, we need to know exactly where we are in the story. We're picking up right after the Israelites have finished the absolutely massive, exhausting job of dividing up the Promised Land among the 12 tribes. Chapters 13 through 19 were all about drawing borders and settling the people. But, land alone doesn't make a functioning nation. You need laws, you need structured justice, and right here in verses 1 and 2, God speaks to Joshua with an immediate command: designate the cities of refuge. What's super interesting here is that Joshua isn't just making this up on the fly. He's actually executing a strict blueprint that was given to Moses years prior, back in the books of Numbers and Deuteronomy, before they even crossed the Jordan River. Joshua is faithfully carrying out that ancient command.
But why the urgency? Well, the tribes have their land, but now they desperately need an infrastructure for justice to prevent endless cycles of tribal bloodshed. Think about it. You've got millions of people settling into new territories. Accidents are absolutely going to happen. And without a centralized, trusted legal system, a simple accidental death can quickly spiral into a devastating multi-generational family feud. These cities of refuge, they are literally the foundation of keeping society civilized in their new home.
Moving to verse 3, it hits us with a really crucial legal distinction. God tells Joshua these cities are specifically for the manslayer that killeth any person through error and unawares. The Hebrew word for this kind of error is bishgagah. This is the golden rule of the entire chapter. These safe havens are strictly for the manslayer who killed accidentally, not for an intentional murderer. To really picture what through error and unawares meant back then, think of the classic Torah example. 2 guys go into the woods to chop wood. One swings his axe, the heavy iron head slips right off the wooden handle, flies through the air, and tragically kills his neighbor. It's horrifying. But there was absolutely zero malice aforethought. No premeditation, no hidden hatred, no planned attack. If a person commits intentional, calculated murder, no way. This system will not protect them at all. This system is exclusively an asylum for tragic, unintentional accidents.
Section 2. Process of seeking sanctuary. The process of asylum.
Okay, so what actually happens when an awful accident like that occurs? To understand the absolute panic of the manslayer in verses 3 and 5, we have to talk about the Avenger of blood. In Hebrew, this is the Goel Hadam. See, in the ancient Middle East, you couldn't just dial 911. Justice, especially when it came to a loss of life, was heavily tied to the family. The Goel was the victim's closest male relative, a brother, a father, a son, and this relative was culturally and legally obligated to seek justice for his family member's spilled blood, to restore the family's honor. He's acting on raw grief and overwhelming duty. In that ancient culture, if the Avenger caught up to the manslayer on the open road and killed him, it wasn't even considered a crime. It was seen as balancing the scales. This explains the sheer terror of the manslayer. The absolute second the accident happens, he has to drop his axe, leave everything behind, and run for his life.
Verse 4 lays out a remarkably clear 3-step survival procedure. Step 1. The manslayer flees as fast as humanly possible to the nearest city of refuge. Step 2. He stands at the entrance of the city gate. Now, ancient city gates weren't just wooden doors in a stone wall. They were deep, complex architectural structures with inner chambers. This was the civic center. It functioned as the local courthouse and the town square, and it's exactly where the local elders sat to judge legal matters. So our panting, terrified manslayer has to stand there and publicly plead his case to the elders. Step 3. If his story sounds like a genuine, tragic accident, the elders are required to take him into the city and give him a place to live. They formally grant him official asylum.
And verse 5 is where the real protection kicks in. It legally binds the elders to shield the manslayer. If that Avenger of blood shows up at the city gates, hot on the trail, demanding the killer's life, the elders are legally bound to say no. The text decrees they must not surrender him, because he struck his neighbor unawares and didn't hate him beforehand. How would they know that for sure? Well, they'd conduct a quick preliminary inquiry. They'd ask around, did these two men argue yesterday? Was there a family feud? If there's no history of bad blood, the elders literally become a wall of objective justice, standing between the Avenger's grief-filled anger and the accidental killer.
Let's look at verse 6, which maps out a very specific timeline for all this. The manslayer isn't just hiding behind the city walls forever without a formal legal resolution. He stays there until he stands before the congregation for a fair, rigorous judgment. Often, he'd be escorted right back to the town where the accident happened under armed guard to present evidence. If the assembly officially proves he's innocent of murder, he goes right back to the city of Refuge, and he has to remain in exile inside those city limits. For how long? Until the death of the high priest. This means he could be living in the city for 2 days, or he could be stuck there for 50 years. He is completely severed from his hometown, his farm, and his old life. Only when the high priest passes away is it legally safe for him to pack up, return to his own house, and be fully protected by the law.
Section 3. The 6 appointed cities. Geographic distribution.
So where exactly were these safe havens? Verses 7 and 8 show us how perfectly distributed they were across the land. This cable beautifully organizes the 6 cities, with 3 on each side of the Jordan River. On the west side, we have Kedesh up in the snowy north, Shechem right in the central hill country, and Kiriath Arba or Hebron down in the southern hills. On the east side, we have Bezer in the southern desert, Ramoth in the middle, and Golan up north. This spacing is incredibly intentional. It ensured that no matter where an accident happened in the entire country, a safe haven was always within a quick, reachable distance, usually no more than a day's journey. Plus, the roads leading to these specific cities had to be kept uniquely wide and clear all year round, with big markers at every crossroad, so a fleeing person wouldn't get lost or tripped up by obstacles.
Verse 9 concludes this legal decree by dropping an amazing progressive principle of equal justice. The text explicitly states these cities were appointed for all the children of Israel and, get this, for the stranger that sojourns among them. This sanctuary applies to native-born Israelite citizens and foreign settlers alike. It is a striking ancient example of civil rights. The standard of justice, the right to a fair trial, and the protection of innocent life applied equally to absolutely everyone living within the borders, regardless of where they were from.
Section 4. Explanations and Key Ideas. Understanding the Law.
Now that we've walked step by step through the literal text, let's zoom out a bit. You might be scratching your head about that specific timeline back in verse 6. Why wait for the high priest to pass away? Why not just hand down a modern prison sentence of 5 or 10 years? What is the logical connection between the highest religious figure in the nation and a localized accidental manslaughter case?
Well, looking at this simple text, the high priest isn't just a regular official. He represents the spiritual life and the holistic standing of the entire nation before God. He literally wears the names of all 12 tribes on his chest. His death is a profound national tragedy, and in a way, it absorbs the localized tragedy of the accidental death. It serves as a natural statute of limitations, but even more importantly, it marks a deep national transition. The passing of the high priest officially closes an era, resetting the scales of justice for the entire community. It wipes the manslayer slate clean so he can return home in peace and legally strips the Avenger of all rights to pursue him from that moment forward.
When you look at the whole system in this chapter, it beautifully contrasts the raw emotion of the Avenger with the structured, impartial justice of the city elders. Unchecked vengeance is purely emotional. It's immediate, it's blind, and it leads to endless cycles of blood guilt that can tear a society apart from the inside. Structured justice, on the other hand, is highly deliberate. It requires a physical flight, a formal plea at the city gates, and a rigorous trial. Ultimately, it preserves innocent life from the chaos of mob rule.
Section 5. Practical Life Lessons. Applying Ancient Wisdom.
So what can we, as focused learners today, actually take away from these ancient cities of refuge? Well, the text challenges us profoundly. First, it pushes us to create our own cities of refuge, building communities in our families, schools, and workplaces that offer a safe harbor and second chances for people who make honest, unintentional mistakes. Second, we have to value the process of fair judgment over rash, emotional reactions. When we feel deeply wronged, we should pause, step back, and seek out the elders, meaning objective wisdom and counsel, before we act out in anger. And finally, we must always ensure that our standards of fairness and kindness apply equally to the insider and the outsider, exactly as those cities protected the citizen and the stranger alike.
Section 6. Summary and Recap. Reviewing Key Points.
Let's pull everything together to really solidify our understanding of Joshua chapter 20. We saw Joshua faithfully executing God's command to build this system of asylum, which was the fulfillment of Moses' ancient instructions. We explored that crystal-clear legal line drawn between intentional malice and unintentional error. We walked through the strict step-by-step process of fleeing to the city gates, pleading before the elders, and standing trial. We noted how the 6 cities were perfectly and evenly distributed east and west of the Jordan for rapid access, and how the exile legally lasted until the national reset triggered by the death of the high priest. It really is a masterclass in balancing the immense grief of a victim's family with the absolute right to life of the unintentional manslayer.
Before we go, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider regarding how we handle accidents and justice today. How can you foster a culture of structured justice, patience, and refuge in your own life? When someone accidentally wrongs you, are you the avenger of blood, or are you the city gates?
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.